Welcome to Hospitality Talks, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Luis De Souza from NFS Hospitality, who is joining me today to talk about loyalty and tech and all those important things to the operator we hear about on a regular basis. So NFS very kindly sponsored our Plan to Plate report that CAM completed last year over 4 quarters, which saw 1,000 consumers on a nat rep basis being interviewed around their whole journey, from literally deciding where to go right through the whole experience of dining out to leaving, paying, leaving a review. So Plan to Plate was exceptionally popular last year. Thank you to NFS for supporting us with it. Luis, please do introduce yourself and your business.
Hello, Jo. Lovely to be talking to you today. We're going to make it as informal as possible.
We
I
are.
founded NFS Hospitality many, many years ago, longer than I care to think about these days. Makes me feel old. And we've been on a journey from, hotel systems to restaurant technology. And now we're moving in the direction of client engagement as an increasingly important part of our business, because the 2 planks really for restaurant operators are the front of house piece, the point of sale, and then the back of house piece, which is, becoming very, very, how do we deal with customers, whether it's CRM or loyalty or other things. That's becoming a top agenda item. So our business has pivoted a little bit to more of those back office solutions.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's set the scene a little bit to start with in terms of consumer behaviour, and how consumers behave and respond to factors that operators can influence in their venues and their brands. Talk to me a bit about what you hear from your clients about this type of behaviour, Luis.
Yeah, so it's a very mixed bag, Jo. So, there isn't a single statement that encapsulates, the complexity of this area. So the first thing to say, it's a complex area. But if I was to simplify, the consumer is no longer looking for a transactional relationship. They want an experiential relationship. We hear that in so many different aspects of our business. And I think the big challenge that we have now, both as an industry and as a provider of softwares and as an operator, we've thought about kind of loyalty as, what do we give back to loyal customers? That has a very strong transactional element. And I think we now have to say, okay, we start off with giving something back and recognizing, you as a valued client. So recognition is becoming another important part of this whole journey. And then we've got the third piece, which I think is gaining in importance rapidly. So when you talk about loyalty, you cannot ignore the experiential element of how you're delivering it, right? So I always, when my team say loyalty, I say it's loyalty, it's recognition, and it's the experience we're delivering to our clients. Looking at how it varies by different type of operator, I see kind of some key segments. So your first segment I would see is generational. The younger generation are much more savvy. They will use technology in a more creative and very, very fast way. Older folks like me probably resist technology a little bit. I always think about the time I go out with the kids and, they're getting their apps out and paying. I'm waiting for the bill. I want to talk to the waiter. I want to tell them what I enjoyed. And they don't want any of that. They want to go on a review site and put it all online. So I'm having to come to terms with that. But I think the second point there is that reviews are becoming increasingly important. So generational feedback and reviews are really, really critical now. And you need almost to make sure that you have someone in your organization to deal with that. What I also see is segmentation by type of venue. So fine dining is very different to casual dining, is very different to quick service. And when we design, programs to encourage loyalty, to encourage spend, we need to be asking some very difficult questions. Then I've seen another trend these days, probably more post-pandemic, is the day of the week thing has shifted enormously, depending on where you are. And I guess my last trend that I would see, and the things that I'm picking up from operators, which is your question, is that preferences are changing. People are becoming more sensitive to what they want. They're not willing to come in and necessarily say, I'll have what's on your menu. They're always wanting to push the boat out a bit to say, can we increase the greens? Can I replace these fries with something else? And I think we need to be designing our menu and our service to take that into account, because if we're giving blank answers, you're not going to get the customer back.
No, that's absolutely true. Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you. What else can operators do to sway customers to visit their venues?
I think obviously the obvious thing is you will not be successful with a loyalty program. Whatever money you throw, if you don't sort out the two basic things, the product and the service. So
Yes.
start by getting the product right, taking those things into account that I've just mentioned and more. It's not for me to tell our operators what their product should be, but I think its product is first. Service level is equally important, because I will not go back to a place if the service is bad. I have too many choices today to spend my money. So I'm willing to forgive once, but probably no more than once. Okay.
And
So
that's exactly what we see in the Plan
yeah,
to Plate report as well.
yeah.
Service, quality of food and service are the sort of two of the top attributes that consumers are looking for when they decide A, where to go, and B, whether they're going to go back there again, and actually C, whether they'll then recommend it, which, as we all know, is the oldest form of marketing in the book.
Yeah. But I think, to your point, Jo, increasingly today, a very significant majority of people will not go to a place without checking out reviews. So if I was to say something to an operator, make sure that you've got client success reviews and a proactive scheme to keep yourself in a good position. I will not go to a place which has had a bad review in the last 3 months. I will not go to a place where the service experience has not been good. Full stop. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. Then moving down how do I generate more revenue, have a larger base of loyal customers, and be able to use both of those things to improve my bottom line. I think the starting point for me is what I call market segmentation. Understand the customers that you're trying to attract and retain. And I think there's some very good, information out there. So you've got your normal diner, you've got your high spending diner, you've got your tactical diner who comes in occasionally, maybe once a year. Then you've got your people that are about to churn. Those are an important group of people. And then you've got your new customer who's walked in for the first time, seen a good review, walked in. I would say before you embark on any spend on loyalty, understand these groups of customers that you have and think about how you're going to take them on the journey that works for you and that is profitable. By giving them 20% off on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, you may not be making the right call. And I've seen too many operators throw discounts at promotion rather than be thinking about it. So that's the first recommendation I would make. The second recommendation that I would make is think about value, not about discount. Yeah. And if you go back to my very first comments, loyalty is becoming very transactional and customers are seeing it that way. So they are taking advantage of loyalty programs without giving you loyalty. There's a lot of that happening in the market right now, and that has a bottom line negative impact. So think about value. If I've got, for example, a high, and we haven't got time to go through all these categories. If you've got a high spending customer group, make sure you've identified them. Make sure you've got all their details correct. The last thing you want is to be offering a steak to someone who's a vegan. Okay. And I've seen that happen to myself and others. And make sure that you've designed the campaign for them looking at data in a very deep way. Frequency. What do they spend on? How much is food? How much is beverage? What type of wines do they typically consume? What type of food? So you're designing a program to get them to give you a greater part of their spend and continue to spend with you because they're already high spenders. And they are also the people who expect recognition, and that they also expect experience. So how do I deliver recognition and how do I deliver experience? So delivering recognition is really down to the service experience, because you can be greeted in one way and you feel welcomed. You can be greeted in another way and shown a table in the corner, and you probably think, I'm not going to be coming back here next Saturday. And experience is an evolving, the third point is an evolving feature of what operators need to do. Do I have a special menu? Do I have a special wine tasting evening? I can't afford to invite all my clients to these things. Maybe a tasting menu, but maybe my high spend clients need to be included in addition to loyalty on some sort of experiential advantage program. So they're coming in, they're dining with you, they know they'll be the first to hear about your menu. They know they will be treated differently when they walk in. They know that you will say sorry when you haven't got it right. Very simple to do. And you will track them and follow them through making sure you're looking at their reviews and making sure you're asking them the critical questions. How was the service today? Did you enjoy that? Our special. So I think a lot of things that we can do are common sense things which good operators are doing today.
And done in a way that they don't feel transactional, back to your point earlier, that they're done with from heart and from the point of view of just being genuine. I think when I was an operator,
authenticity is the word there.
Yeah, but we used to talk about genuine service, make it feel like it's, I'm going to use the word personal, because actually that's what you want to feel. Just touching on something you said, you talked about a little while ago, about steaks and vegans and, offering wine offers to people who don't drink. Personalization is a big thing we hear a lot about.
You're correct. I forgot to mention that, but personalization is probably the biggest method by which you can give the recognition and the experience, because the personalization becomes a key part of delivering that experience and delivering that recognition.
And the operators you work with, how do they feel about personalization? Are they using personalization within their businesses? How can tech help with personalization?
Yeah. So there are two elements of personalization. The first element of personalization is having the data. And here is where AI is going to help many companies and many operators to be able to run through very quickly the analytics of particularly their regular guests and their high spending guests. So you need to use these tools. AI is moving from just pulling large amounts of data to agentic AI, which means there will be agents in our software that are able to do specific things, to say, right, tell me the customers whose spend has declined over the last 12 months and who are at risk of churn, because you define churn as someone maybe hasn't visited in 3 months. And AI will be able to very quickly give you not just the data set, but the pattern around which this is taking place. And sometimes when clients are churning, it could be for personal reasons, they've moved away from the location. Sometimes it's your product or service that is not right. And AI will help you with understanding this. So I think that's a very important tool. The second part of what I think is happening in our world today is around personalization. Personalization is very complex in some way to identify and analyze. It's actually easier to deliver because it involves the human touch in our business. Hospitality is about that human engagement and that human touch. And don't rely on technology to deliver personalization. Rely on technology to identify who you need to treat and how you need to treat them. Because when I've seen operators saying, "Oh, we'll just throw a QR code on the desk, on the table, and leave it to them to pay," I think that's a retrograde step in the customer experience journey. I think QR codes are right for certain type of operations. They're right with a certain generational group, and they're right in certain situations. I'm going to the theater, I want to pay quickly. But I think as a general rule, I would say, do not lose that personal engagement with your client, which you can have through technology and quick service through a good kiosk experience.
Yes.
All right. So technology can play an important role, but it depends on the sector of the market and the type of service as to how that technology should be relied on and should be evolved.
You've touched on AI there. And it's obviously a massive area we hear a lot about. And I've just spent 2 days at the Restaurant Marketer Innovator Conference, where AI has been a big, big topic of that. How is that evolving in your business, and how important is it to your business, or how important will it be to your business going forward?
It is already very important. So we have some really good AI technology in our guest experience portfolio. We're also adding some great AI technology in our point of sale portfolio, where the level of prompting that you will get for the operator and the server, because I think that's the big area at the front of house. The information available through analytics a week later is no good. I need to know now that this experience of my client sitting in that particular table is not going very well. So we're building the agents that are going to be able to interrogate wait times, maybe some menu and order changes that have taken place, which you think, something's not quite right there. Let me, as the leader of this business, go to the table and actually ask the question, how are you doing? I see you've changed 3 times. Did you get the right advice? Can we do anything to help you so that you have good experience? So we're building smaller agents. So the large language AI stuff is kind of done now. It's in our analytics, area. Now we're looking at very specific use cases as to how they can help the restaurateur at the front end in a dynamic way through the front end technology. And then at the back end, we're looking at, okay, you've now dined. Have we asked you for a review? Have we asked you for feedback? When can we expect you to be dining again based on our computation and our forecasting? And if you don't dine for 3 months after that, we need to do something proactive, not transactional, but proactive.
Yeah. Great. I just want to touch back on loyalty and promos, because we touched on it earlier. But obviously our Plan to Plate report had a lot of data around use of loyalty schemes, use of
It was very good
promos.
data, by the way, which I enjoyed reading.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting it again. So we saw, I'm just going to read off my screen because I can never remember all the stats. 28% of customers currently participate in a pub, bar, or restaurant loyalty scheme. And if they get that scheme right, 42% of those customers will visit more often than they currently do. Now, I'm just going reflecting back on what you said earlier about loyalty schemes. They're not the be all and end all, but how did that data resonate with you?
I think that's a fairly good summary, but that is a generic summary. It doesn't take it down to customer segments. Are we talking about first visits? Are we talking about regular customers? Are we talking about high spend customers? I think when you look at these things, you really need to dig into the customer segmentation piece. You can't make an excuse today. Good data is available if it's entered correctly and if it's used correctly to the analytical tools. So the days when we put things on spreadsheets are gone. We're putting all the data, we're capturing all that data largely in real time. We have the tools today through analytics to get that out and use it well. And if we're doing that, I think, we can deliver that experience and loyalty program well. I'll say one caution on loyalty. Even when it's transactional, ask the question, which I see many people not asking. What would be the impact of not providing this incentive on this day to this value on this product line to this customer? Try and get an honest answer to that question, because it has a big impact on your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm conscious we're nearly up on time already, so I'm going to ask you one final question as a wrap up, Lewis. Your prediction for 2025 for hospitality, what do you see happening in 2025?
I've got 3 simple things to say. Number one, I think it's going to be a tough year for us, sad to say, but that's the bad news out of the way. I think the operators who are delivering consistently good product and service will do well, because as we get squeezed financially, we make safer choices. The third thing that I would say is an appeal. Start to really understand your customers and think about how you maintain the revenue stream and the bottom line through the transactional piece, which is important, through the recognition piece that's equally important, particularly for frequent visitors, and through the experiential schemes that you need to develop. And those would be my 3 or 4 key bits of, closing our conversation today.
Brilliant. Thank you. Luis De Souza, CEO of NFS Hospitality, thank you so much for your time today. And again, thank you for sponsoring the Plan to Plate report. It's been a real pleasure talking to you this afternoon. Speak to you soon. Thanks, Luis.